This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeremy Wolf.
Hello, everyone. We are back, and we are in for a good one today. I think this is going to be fun. According to the CDC, about 6 in 10 adults in the U.S. have at least one chronic illness, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. And some studies suggest that up to 30% of patients visiting primary care have chronic symptoms that remain unexplained after testing. Our guest today, his mission is to pinpoint the root causes of your illness and help you rapidly reboot and reclaim your optimal health. I'm here with Dr. Lonnie Herman, and Dr. Herman is the creator of the Rapid Health Recovery System, which focuses on uncovering and addressing the root causes of chronic illnesses through personalized protocols. Dr. Herman, welcome to the show, brother.
Hello, good morning. I appreciate you having me on, and hello to all your followers.
Yes. Thank you to the followers for tuning in and listening to learn more about our great community and the businesses that serve us. So like I said, this is going to be fun because this topic is something that continually comes up in my radar. I've interviewed many guests talking about health care as it relates to people in this country and around the world. And we do have an epidemic in this country when it comes to chronic illness. So I'm interested to learn a little bit about Rapid Health Recovery System. What inspired you to develop this business?
I'll tell you, I was always into natural type of healthcare growing up in my home and into physical fitness, and just never really liked the shots personally. Some people do, not me. I don't like taking medicines, and just decided to explore natural healthcare. And I went for chiropractic first. And when I came out, I had a successful chiropractic clinic, but I noticed something. I was getting bored because people with chronic illnesses, whether it was just migraine headaches or high blood pressure or asthma or skin rashes or lupus or MS, there was no benefit for too many people, even if it was just simple things like a carpal tunnel or sciatica. So I just realized back then, and that's probably about 15 years ago, that it was time for me to go back to school, actually. And I explored and studied deep, quite honestly, for about 10 years of postgraduate study in neurology and neurochemistry and immunology, and just the list goes on, endocrinology and GI disorders and developmental brain disorders and brain dissection. And there were people around me. My grandfather, when I was a little boy, he had a stroke, left him paralyzed, no speech, no arm and leg movement on one side of his body. And then my grandmother's, on my mother's side, her second husband developed Parkinson's, and with the meds. This was early on. I was about 28 years old when I came out of chiropractic school. And this man who I loved, he treated my grandmother like just incredible. They had such a great love affair, marriage, traveled around the world. But he developed Parkinson's. And it was right after I came out of chiropractic school where I just realized this man went down so fast. It was a year under medical care. The medications did not stop his tremors and his stiffness from getting worse. And I just said, I have to explore something else, because both sides of the coin, the alternative and the medical side, were missing something.
Indeed. Can you go into explain a little bit more about the core principles of your system, right? And how that kind of differs from traditional medical approaches? Because in this country, we're too quick to treat the symptom and not the underlying cause of many of these illnesses. And healthcare professionals are always putting Band-Aids on people and not addressing the underlying conditions. How do you dig in and treat the root causes of these various illnesses with your patients?
First, when I took immunology in my postgraduate studies, the PhD in immunology had shared studies from all around the world that were showing that all these diseases, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or asthma or high blood pressure and heart disease, they were all caused by germs that invaded the body, different parasitic infections and bacterial infections and mold, fungal infections and viral infections. And he even pointed out that something as common as a thyroid or hypothyroidism, or also called Hashimoto's, an autoimmune thyroid disease, that it could be caused by the mercury or silver filling, as it's called, in somebody's tooth, can seep right down from the tooth into the thyroid. So that really opened my mind and opened my heart and my eyes to say, I've got to be able to figure this out. With this work that I do now, we'll fast forward many years, But this work that I do now was developed by two parts of my work, I'll say. One part was developed by biophysicists in Europe, where they realized that frequencies can heal the body. And there's a very long discussion I can give, but I'll make it very short. We have these samples of different types of organisms, of different viral infections and bacterial infections. I have samples here in my clinic, all these different vials of these different Lyme disease bugs and molds and fungal infections and candida fungus infections and all these different viruses, as well as different chemicals. And we're able to do a different way of testing. It's a reflex testing, kinesiology. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but there's a way, or it can also be called muscle testing. Now, let me pause. Years ago, when I took all these postgraduate studies, the schools were teaching of running all these different genetic tests that I used to run on people, genetic testing and urine testing and hair analysis and blood tests of antibodies in the body for, let's say, somebody had lupus or MS. We could find that there's antibodies against the intestines like celiac disease. And there were food sensitivity panels for gluten sensitivities and dairy sensitivities and other food sensitivities that can initiate or exacerbate symptoms in a person's body, and hormone testing and heavy metal testing. And the list goes on. I was running all these different labs on people, but I found out very quickly that there were patients where these labs came up normal. And when the labs came up normal, there was nothing out of order. Cholesterol was normal, blood sugars were normal, liver enzymes were normal. There was no infection in the urine. There's heavy metals were not too out of order in the labs. And the list goes on. There was too many unanswered questions, too many. And for me, as a physician, I want to be able to get the answers for the person, because I can't sleep at night or look at myself in the mirror unless I can actually figure it out for a person, go home proud that I got the job accomplished for someone. So I started exploring different ways of testing the body and treating the body. And I stumbled upon this work. Stumbled is a way to put it, but I was focused on finding the answer. But I found this work that was developed by these biophysicists, and they said that actually frequencies can heal the body. And there's a healing that some of your followers may be familiar with called homeopathy. And homeopathy is that like cures like. We can use the same energy of the infection, like malaria in the body. We can use the energy. We can use a remedy that's the frequency of that malaria parasite and bombard it with itself to knock it out of the body. I can give a kind of a brief discussion about that. But the thing is, when the same frequency of the organism, whether it's strep bacteria or staph bacteria or the flu virus or a parasite, when you can bombard it with its own frequency, it will neutralize that organism in the body and get rid of the symptom.
That's fascinating. Yeah. How are you administering that? What's the method for introducing that frequency to the body and combating that organism?
Yeah, so some of your followers who are into alternative healthcare, they may know of something called, and this is not what I'm doing, but this is my first step in starting to understand frequencies and helping the body heal itself, because we're not healing, the patient heals themselves with this work. So there was a doctor in the 1920s, his name was Royal Rife, R-I-F-E, and he proposed this idea that he was able to create a machine, and if the history books are true, he created a machine that would send out frequency that would match the fungus or the virus in the body, and it would obliterate that organism, and then this person's symptom disappeared. So fast forward to the 1990s, one of the scientists who discovered HIV, who won a Nobel Prize, by the way, and there's a video that people can see about this work on YouTube called Water's Memory. That's not my work, that's what they discovered, that water can actually hold the frequency. It can be programmed like a computer chip, literally hold the energy, not putting the organism in the water, it can hold the frequency of the organism through machines. So if we think of like how if you've ever had a dead car battery and you go to somebody with a jumper cable and you connect it positive to positive, negative to negative, they start their car that has a good battery, and within a minute, 2, 3, 4 minutes, you can start your car up again, but your battery was just dead. But we didn't have to go to engineering school or physics or any of that to know that somehow the energy traveled through that cable from the good battery to the dead battery. It doesn't drain the good battery, but it gives us enough of a boost or a jump that we get the car that had the dead battery a minute ago. So somehow the energy travels through that wire called the jumper cable. So what these scientists back in the 90s discovered, again, one of them was a Nobel Prize winner for discovering HIV. They found that they could create a machine. Number one, they created a machine that can measure the frequency, the energy level of, let's say, strep bacteria. Somebody had a strep throat. They measure the strep organism's frequency. They took it in a sealed vial. They put it on one side of a machine that had cables connecting side A, or the input, to the output, side A to side B, like a jumper cable from battery to battery. And they had a propelling device, like a magnet, that would propel the energy from side A to side B. So they took the strep bacteria, let's say the frequency that they measured with a frequency reading device. The strep was 103.5, like an FM radio station. So make it simple for your followers to understand. 103.5 in the strep, they put it on one side of the machine. They took water, they measured the water's frequency was 0. They put the water on the other side of the machine. They turned the machine on. A few hours later, they came back to the lab, they turned it off. They took out the strep bacteria, it was still 103.5. They took out the water that was 0 a couple of hours ago. They took out the water, it was now measuring 103.5, the same energy, just like jumper cable, battery to battery. They took one drop of that water and measured it also. It was 103.5 in itself, the same as the bottle that they took the water from, same as the strep organism that made the strep throat. They gave one drop of this strep water, energized water, to the patient. They didn't put strep in it, they put its energy in it, its frequency. So it was programmed to be 103.5, hypothetically. They gave one drop of that to the patient with the strep throat, and the strep throat within a few hours disappeared. So 103.5 meant the 103.5. So let's say, for example, if there was a measles virus in a person, and let's just call it hypothetically measles, it doesn't matter the number, but let's just say it's 102.7, like a radio station number, try to make it understand the frequencies. 102.7 is measles, and we hit the 103.5 strep energy to the 102.7, it does nothing to it. But 103.5 means 103.5, strep to strep, it obliterates the strep.
Now, are these isolated cases, or have there been studies done, like FDA studies? Where are we at today with this?
Well,
this is the first I'm hearing about this, and
Yeah.
it sounds like it's not common medical parlance, right? It seems like experimental
Absolutely.
type therapies, right?
Everything's experimental. So if we look at, that's a great comment that you made, and I'm just going to observe something, is that when drug companies, I'm not knocking them because they have helped save lives, okay? But when a drug company comes out with a pill like Vioxx or some other pill, they try it on people. They're not trying it on a lab rat or a mouse. They try it on people, and then it's 10 years that they're selling billions of dollars of it, and then they get it with a lawsuit because it killed someone. It made people have strokes or something like that. So everything is trial. But when it comes to this, it's not a drug, it's not a food. So the FDA is not, they don't, in this country, they're more in line with what drug companies are putting on the market. And so I can get more political, I won't go there. But the thing is,
that's a rabbit hole we need not enter today.
But the point is that when it comes to the FDA, this is not a drug, and it's not so it's not that it's got to be FDA approved. And in the United States, we are allowed to do other types of alternative treatments, and it's safe and it can't hurt someone. So when I look at cases, if any of your followers would go to my YouTube channel or my Facebook page, they'll see that I've got dozens and dozens of testimonials of patients where skin rashes disappeared, where headaches disappeared, where asthma disappeared, where somebody with multiple sclerosis, she was able to go from complete paralysis where she couldn't move her limbs for years. She's able to move them and kick them out in front of her, and her numbness left her body, and the list goes on. Bladder disorders have changed from this. Somebody with a chronic overactive bladder for 28 years of her life, it disappeared with me. Nearly 100% disappeared within one treatment with this work. So I've got a lot of case studies, but it's just me, the one man doing this work. Now, there are other practitioners in the country who do frequency work as well. So there is evidence on multiple fronts that frequencies do heal, and it's possible. Yeah. If that answers the question.
I believe it. I'm going to put my skeptical hat on now because I like to dig into the skepticism side of all this. I agree with a lot of what you said. And the human body obviously has an unbelievable capacity to heal itself. From my experience, though, what I found in my own journey is that there are no shortcuts when it comes to this stuff. And everything at some level is rooted in lifestyle, diet, exercise, and taking care of your body, your temple, to avoid all these issues. So when somebody comes out and says, oh, I have this thing where you could do one treatment and it's going to cure all your issues, again, my skepticism hat comes up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you said that. I want to dig into that a little more. Maybe you could go into a little bit further, a patient success story, and then talk a little bit more about some of the treatments that you've offered in real time to people and how that's progressed for your clients.
Yeah, there's another patient with his bladder disorder. He's in his early 20s. He lives in Texas. He comes to my clinic in South Florida. I'm right near where you are, here in Davie, Florida. And he had overactive bladder, going more than 25 times a day and night to the bathroom for years. He had anxiety, he had depression, he had insomnia, he had brain fog. His brain felt like the world was not real around him. It was always, everything was moving really fast around him. It was hard to, I couldn't even understand. Like perceiving what was really going on in his brain is difficult to understand because it's not like the world was moving fast by me. And the fast moving world started to slow down within a couple of treatments. The headaches went away, the anxiety went away in a few treatments. It wasn't all in one treatment. You never said that I said that, but it wasn't all just one treatment. Sometimes
when you say treatment, are we talking about the frequency treatment, or is this another type of treatment?
Yes, the frequency treatment.
Okay, got it.
And I'll elaborate on that if I can. But it took to get his bladder to go from 25 plus times in 24-hour period going to the bathroom and being very insecure about it, not being able to have a relationship because he's so embarrassed he has to pee all the time. It took us probably, it was by the 8th or 9th visit with me and treatment that he followed that I developed for him for my exam process. It took about 8th or 9th time before his bladder got down to going to the bathroom like 5 times a day. So it wasn't in one. We do have some cases, some patients where one treatment just like sums it up. And it's just incredible to see the relief. And I've got videos where it took me 3, 4, 5 times. There are some people with so much. One of the things that we've got to understand about these chronic illnesses is that there's so many different toxins in our environment, pesticides, weed killer spray, and the list goes on, food dyes, residues of antibiotics that stay in the body and hurt the body. There's injections that people have had, whether it's from shots for their immune system to dental anesthesia that's necessary. Those chemicals stay in the body. Surgical anesthetics stay in the body. There's lead, there's heavy metals, there's arsenic, there's so much now. And people pick up germs. There are viruses that people pick up and bacteria and molds and fungal and parasites in foods. So how much of a burden does one person have compared to another? We could have 2 people that have migraine headaches who come in the clinic, and they're 2 totally different people with totally different backgrounds, with totally different journeys in life. And we've got to be able to look at the person as an individual, not as a diagnosis label, because one person with a migraine, maybe it's because they have an active virus literally in their brain that I would find. We get it out of there, and then the migraine just goes away. Another person might have been an abuser of cocaine that I've seen. Severe migraine headache, couldn't even walk in the clinic. Somebody had to carry this woman in. We found there was cocaine in the brain. We got it out of there with a remedy for it, and the migraines disappeared. Another person, it took me 2 years to figure out her migraines. 40 plus years of migraines, this poor woman with light sensitivity. It took more than 2 years. She doesn't have it anymore. She came to me from Honduras, but it took a while to unravel all the different toxins and infections that were hurting her nervous system, and the migraines are gone for years. But it was every day of debilitating migraines for this poor woman. So we got to look at it case by case to figure it out.
So I have a good friend of mine, my best friend. He's up in Orlando. I'm interested to get your view on this, because this is an interesting case. He was suffering from an autoimmune disorder years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when. You're familiar with mast cell disease?
Yes.
Okay. So he had been to a bevy of doctors throughout the state of Florida. They had him on about 15 prescription medications. He was breaking out in giant boils. It took them forever to even diagnose him with what this was. And he was on prednisone, all sorts of really toxic stuff consistently. And he was miserable. He was suicidal. And he had one foot out the door. Honestly, he just didn't know what to do with himself. He was in a really dark place. And a friend came over and had him smoke dimethyltryptamine, DMT. Mm-hmm. And he had and if for listeners that don't know, it's an intense psychedelic. It's found in, I think it comes from the root of a tree down in Amazon or something along those lines. Anyway, and it's also naturally occurring, they say, in the human body. Anyway, he had this breakthrough experience, they call it, where he encountered something that told him everything was going to be okay, and he didn't need all these medications. He had the ability within himself to heal himself. And slowly but surely from that process, he really dug deep into plant medicine, holistic healing, all this stuff. And over time, he was able to remove himself from all of the medications. He's a religious practicer now of kambo. Are you familiar with kambo?
No.
It's a secretion from the giant monkey tree frog in the Amazon. And it's supposedly the venom that comes off the frog. You put it in your system and it purges your system of a bunch of toxins, things like that. Anyway, the proof is in the pudding. He's completely cured. He's been off medications and he's changed his whole lifestyle around this, what he does now. And I find that really fascinating. And I'm interested to get your take on that. Have you had any study or research into the field of plant medicine, psychedelics, things like that, that really dig into the mind aspect of all of this?
I don't know anything about DMT, but I've heard it mentioned online. I never looked into it. I used to use all these different herbs, but they didn't really deliver all the great results that I wanted them to and that patients wanted them to. So, and that Rife machine I had that I mentioned about Dr. Wright before, I had that, and it wasn't delivering all the results that I wanted it to. So I don't know about the psychedelics. I've heard great things from some people like Ibogaine, and there's other items out there that can give people great relief or getting them off of addictions and lots of other
mental illnesses, depression, things of that nature.
And we've done it with this work, and we've done it with this work. We've seen anxiety disappear with this work. We've seen a lifetime of depression disappear with this work that I'm talking about here that I do. But if there is an easy way for a person to take something like DMT that gave him some insight, and then he found with a tree frog, and because I've heard about venom helping people, I've just never worked with some of those other things. I've been so dedicated to figuring this system out that I do, and something else that I can introduce to your followers as well that I mentioned before we got on this call. But it's the easier it is for a person to get better, the better. If it only, for me with this work, if it only takes one treatment to get a person better, that's it. I'd rather have that. I don't want them coming back. And not that I don't like people. It's just I want them to have relief and sing praise about my work. It's not about keeping it going. But there are people who can take herbs. I did it for a woman. She had this lesion in her mouth, and the roof of the mouth was just deteriorating. We found that there was just one pill she had to take. It was this herb. I don't remember the name of the herb. It's several years ago. She got a bottle of these. It cost her like $30 for the bottle. She took these pills and the whole thing disappeared. All the gum tissue on the roof of the mouth grew back to normal.
Wow.
The parasite that I found up there. So there's lots of, it's just with my work, I realized though, that the more complex, at least this is what I think still, is that the more complex a certain case is, it takes a bit more deeper thinking to be able to unravel that complexity of that disease. And that's where I really started to focus on years ago, because there are some cases where they could just take a couple of different herbs and I would see their symptoms go away, but there were some where it didn't work. And I was like, why is it not working for them? Why did it work for this person, but not that person? And they had the same symptoms. But why did one person take pills and they just threw up after they took the pills? They couldn't even take those herbal pills. So I had to find them another more stealth-like type of way of administering the frequency to the person, because even herbs are frequencies. Everything is energy on this planet. Everything is energy in the universe. So God is energy. We're all energy. So when I had to find another way, because there are some people who are taking, even sometimes taking simple things like electrolytes or magnesium, some people would have the adverse reaction. They would end up with constipation, or they ended up not being able to lift their leg. And I was like, what just happened to the person? So I had to find another way, which is what I do, to be able to figure it out. I like being the Sherlock Holmes of it. But yeah, there are cases with psychedelics. There are people who take MDMA. There are people who take different herbs who do see incredible relief. And there's no doubt. People deserve a better awareness of the alternatives they have, because a lot of people are stuck in the medical only mindset, and when it doesn't work. And I know one case in particular, my own mother, she was on 13 different high blood pressure pills, 13 of them. She still had edema in her legs and her feet for years. She was coming on her 14th anniversary of her open heart surgery that she had. So, but they say that open heart surgery in 15 years later, they're just going to need another one. Well, the time came, she started fainting. She started literally losing consciousness and memory. And I was like, I've got to help her, because the edema was getting worse. It was oozing coming out of her skin, on her legs and her feet. She was on 13 different meds. 11 of those were high blood pressure meds. And with this work, what we did, we were able to reverse all of this, as well as get her down from 13 meds. 11 of those were high blood pressure, down to 1 blood pressure med. She doesn't need them all. And she stopped with the fainting, and the consciousness is normal, and she's strung at 78. It's just, I'm just saying to your followers that there are other alternatives, and people deserve to be a right to start to explore those and see if something helps them. And sometimes one alternative doesn't help them. They got to find the other one. It takes time. It takes time sometimes to be able to figure it out for people. So I'm at least proud with my work that I can say, when somebody comes in here, we have a greater chance of figuring it out, because we have all these great tools to be able to do it. Which brings me to the other one that I can share when you're ready. But go ahead.
Definitely want to get into that. But I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the mindset. right?
Mhm.
From your experience in dealing with this, how important is the mindset in healing? And for me, this is what I've experienced. The older I get, the more aware I become, as is natural in life. And what I found is there's two types of suffering or struggle that you go through in this life. There's the involuntary type that is reactionary, where you have something that happens and it triggers something, and you can either choose to ruminate on that and go down a rabbit hole and live in a state of suffering for some people, hours, days, weeks, and depression, or you could acknowledge the thing that's happening and do your best to try to understand why it's coming up. And in doing that, it seems that it unravels the thing. Now, when it comes to intentional suffering, things like strenuous exercise or rigorous study, I find that when I go into that with a frame of, I'm doing this to better myself, I'm doing this to grow, you have a better experience. It seems to release better chemicals in your body that are productive. Whereas when you have this involuntary triggered stress reactions, it seems to release chemicals that are constructive to you and are detrimental to your health. Can you speak a little bit to that? Am I hitting the nail on the head in that explanation at all? Where am I at with that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's one great book that I started listening to. I bought it in paperback and I listened to it on Audible. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I highly recommend for you and your followers to get that book. It's brilliant. So there is power in prayer. There is power in the positive mindset, but the mindset alone, yes, of course, you can have an injury or stress from working out, and which I'm addicted to exercise, but you can have good addiction. But you can have a stress, an injury that happens, a pain that happens from an injury from working out or running or playing football or whatever it is. But when it comes to the the pains that people suffer from, some of them are linked to emotional stress. Unfortunately, for some people, not everybody has the best, great upbringing. They don't have, they have two parents that are working day and night. People are stressed in their home, bills to pay, can't make enough money. The bills come faster than the money comes in. Sometimes there are people where their parents, I'm not blaming all parents, but there are people whose parents don't teach them self-defense. They get bullied in school. That happens where they can't defend themselves. That creates a self-esteem issue. That creates a defeating issue. There are people who have literally, and I'm going to get to another point in a minute, but there are people who have literally not been able to look at themselves in the right way, and they have constant negative thoughts about themselves, and they will develop, and they can develop ulcers, right? A physical change in the body can develop from stress, develop ulcers, high blood pressure. They can develop pains in the body, and there's proof in not genetic theory study, but what's called epigenetics. It was proposed probably, I don't know, maybe about 30 years ago. There's one Dr. Bruce Lipton, like Lipton iced tea. People can look him up on YouTube. And he's one of the first places I heard about epigenetics. They proved that the human cell, under a very powerful microscope, they watched all the parts of the cell function. They found it working normally. When they spoke negatively to the cell, I hate you, you're evil, the cell function changed into a diseased manner. There's proof of water, by the way, back to the water healing. There's a Dr. Emoto, Emoto. People can look pictures that he did that are online on, they can use Google, Dr. Emoto water images. They can just Google that. And he spoke to water, love, froze the water, put it under a microscope, and the water looked in a beautiful snowflake-like appearance. Every time he spoke love to the water, it had the same exact snowflake appearance. When he spoke evil to the water, it had a totally different appearance. The same water, different word, negative word spoke, it changed the water's appearance under the microscope. If he said the word angel, it literally took a halo appearance, like a snowflake, but in a halo appearance. When he spoke peace, or prosperity, or health, or when he said, I hate you, or Hitler, the water changed into a different, from a positive, beautiful appearance to a negative appearance, to a disgusting appearance. And what understand something about the human body is that the water that we drink hydrates every single cell in the human body. Your skin, your brain, your heart, your thyroid, your lungs, your prostate, or a woman's ovaries and uterus, to bones, lymph, blood vessels, all have hydration. Muscles have hydration. Your thyroid gland hydrates. You have to hydrate it with water. There's not one part of your body that can live without water. When they prove that negative energy entering the water changes the water structure, which can disease the cell in the body. But that's what I realized. You can actually be drinking or talking negatively around something and say evil, I hate you, or something like that, negative talk in the home, and drink that water. And that hate is in the water, literally, and goes into the body and is infused into every single tissue of the body. And it will change the function of the tissues. Now I'm going to take it even a bit deeper. Hopefully that wasn't too deep for people. But that's the reality. They can look up Dr. Emoto, but look up Bruce Lipton. They proved that when they put viruses near the human cell or bacteria near, not even in, or mercury near the cell, that the cell went from a happy state to a diseased state, to an inflamed state. So they found that the germs and toxins didn't even have to be in, but near. Even cell phone energy or 5G energy that they put near the cell under the microscope, it became a diseased state. They actually took the DNA, the gene, out of the cell before they did these experiments. They took the nucleus that we were learned in biology, that was the brain of the cell. They took the nucleus out and they took the DNA out, and the cell never changed its function. It stayed the same. It didn't die. It didn't become diseased. Nothing changed. So if the gene predicted the outcome of the cell when the gene was missing from the cell, how did the cell still behave and function the same, still healthy? When without the DNA or the gene in the cell, when they put the virus near the cell or in the cell, that's when it became diseased. When they spoke negatively to the cell, it became diseased. When they put mercury near it, it became diseased. So they proved that the gene did not predict the outcome. You could have two women with breast cancer, unfortunately, breast cancer genes, and one may not get breast cancer. She could live to 90 years old and never get breast cancer, and the other one did. So the gene didn't predict the outcome. So if they look up epigenetics, I forgot what your question was. I'm talking for a little while here.
No, you're
but
good.
epigenetics, the environment changes the cell's behavior. What was your question again? Please remind me.
I can't remember, but all this
There was exercise and trauma. And
Yeah.
what I learned, because I took neurochemistry and I took psychiatry and I took psychology, and I learned that think of this is if you drove your car to my clinic, your car is going to behave in a certain way because you have driving habits that are yours. If you came to my clinic and you said, you know what, Dr. Herman, let's go out talk, let's go on and drive, but here's the keys, I want you to drive. Your car is going to perform differently because I have different driving habits than you, but it's the same machine. Now, if I said, you know what, let's talk, let's sit in the back, my mother's here, let's let her chauffeur us around and let's have a discussion. And so she's going to drive your car, same machine, but she's a different inhabitant in that car, and she drives very different than you or me. Trust me, very slow, very careful. Okay. But the same car performs different. So what I learned when I saw in neurochemistry, one of the professors had said, don't think of, for somebody with depression or anxiety or Parkinson's, don't think of treating the person, or fibromyalgia, terrible pain problem, or migraine headaches. Don't think of treating the person for the symptom, find the cause, because don't try to replace somebody's depression medicine with an herb and think you're going to win. Well, you're just you're still being the pill providing specialist to try to get rid of the symptom, but don't play with somebody's life. Don't try to get rid of depression when they're already stable with their depression med. Don't try to switch get off of meds and get on this pill because it's better for you. No, they're not depressed. They're not going to kill themselves. Be careful with somebody's life. And what I began to realize when I studied immunology deeper into studies about immunology, about the immune system, about germs invading the body, when we have an invader, like my mother getting into your car, the car is going to drive differently. What about the influenza virus or the Epstein-Barr monovirus invaded somebody's brain and their emotional controlling center of their brain? And it makes them depressed, or it makes them anxious because it's driving the brain to behave that way. Right? What happens if somebody had an injection in the tooth to numb the tooth to do a cavity filling, and 3-4 hours later the numbness wore off of the mouth, but the chemical traveled somewhere? It didn't just disappear. What if that numbing chemical went up into the anxiety part of the brain and gets stuck in there like a tattoo ink in the skin, never leaves? So when the numbing chemical went up to the anxiety controlling part of the brain, and it's going to change its behavior, like my mother driving my mother's not bad. I love my mother, but my mother driving the car. So it's going to make that part of the brain behave differently. So that person now goes on a journey for 20, 30, 40, 50 years with anxiety, taking anxiety meds, having pains in the body, getting ulcers, and so on. And when we can just find that chemical and get it out of there, which is what I'm able to do with this work, and get it out of there. How do I know? Am I going and doing a brain biopsy? No. But when I see a person's personality change, when I see the body function change, when their ulcers disappear, when their anxiety goes away or their depression goes away, and we have many cases. I've got videos of people where they had anxiety, they had depression that just disappeared with this work. So I'm speaking on knowing from my research, but also I'm believing in my work and I'm going to get right back to something about the mind in a minute, but seeing the patients who come in getting relief from this. But back to your thought about which my first recommendation, does the mind, does the belief in the system, or does the mind play a role in helping the person heal or not? Can they doubt it? So the answer is to some degree, yes, because somebody can think themselves sick. Yep. So getting back to your father's, just that one book, I love The Power of Your Subconscious. People know Joe Dispenza. There are people out there talking about, So, but The Power of the Subconscious Mind, get that book, and I'll tell you, it's got certain prayers that can just really take a person from negative self-talk to positive. But do we also need healthy food? Yes. Do we also need to do, if a child is in school and getting bullied, self-esteem was like, oh my God, what the hell? I can't stand up to these people because I never learned how to fight as a kid. But I'll tell you, when I was 30, I said, I'm going to get my black belt. And I did. It took me 10 years and I got it in karate. And then I went on and I'm doing this. People don't have to know all about me, but I'm doing this Israeli military combat style training. I won't take it from anyone anymore. Got to be able to protect myself and my family. But there's still, we've got to face the things that are hurting us. But again, there could be somebody who was functioning normal, who then got an infection like a virus, like the flu virus. They got sick, but the virus went to their brain and now it changed their personality, made them anxious, and they could be stuck in a pattern or make them have pains in the body, like a fibromyalgia pain or something. So we got to think deeper, but a start is a positive mindset. Absolutely. Because if they think that if they're trapped and they can never get out of it and they stay in that mindset, then they will be exactly that.
Indeed. I want to pull this up here and I want to show some examples of before and afters for, I believe, are these all your patients?
They're not my patients. Some of them are, but not all of them. Yeah, so we can see, I'm going to show your listeners here. There's this, if you can see it on my camera, this patch. It's in the same principle of frequencies. So there's a company called LifeWave, and LifeWave was developed over 20 years ago. David Schmidt is the founder. We'll talk about that picture in just a moment. Let me just introduce the science behind it. Yeah. LifeWave, somebody was telling me about this for more than a year and a half, and I didn't listen. I didn't buy them. And I was like, why do I got to listen? I've got my own healing. And then she sent me a podcast interview of the owner, the CEO, who's got over 100 patents on his items. And he talked about frequencies in healing the body. And it's along the lines of what I do. And I just said, okay, let me listen more. And I then bought their wholesale. I was able to buy through her this wholesale kit of these different patches and try them. And so the first day we tried them on my mother, who still had some numbness and tingling in her feet and legs. I decreased it a lot with my work. For 2 years, I was working on my mother, blood pressure down, looking better, edema down, but the numbness was still in the legs and the feet. We put these patches on her feet, and within 5 minutes, no exaggeration, within 5 minutes, her numbness and pain disappeared that fast without me even doing any extra work. So I said, let me explore more of this. So what David Schmidt discovered is with this patch, and I'll show you what one of them looks like. This is it.
Okay, so we're looking at a little disc type object. What is exactly in there? What is it made of? What does it do?
Yeah. There's a crystalline matrix, the crystalline matrix of different nano. So right on the back, by the way, there's a back like a Band-Aid. You peel it off and you stick it on your skin. So I'll do this right now. Let me just show you. So I take this off, take it off. You see it? You can see that white disc in the center. And I'm just going to place it on. I'll put this one on my wrist. It doesn't matter where I put it. I'm going to explain that more, but now it's just sitting here. That's it. Okay. Sorry for that. That's it. So what he figured out with frequencies, we as humans, we produce, and I'll tell you what's in the patch in a minute, but we produce infrared energy. If you ever watch a movie like military, like Navy SEALs, they got those night vision goggles on, they can see the body in a dark room because the body is releasing, it's producing and releasing into the environment infrared energy. So those goggles measure the infrared so we can see a body in the dark. So what David Schmidt realized is that we can, it's just like you shine a light into a mirror, the mirror reflects the light, right? So he created, there's all little crystals, nanoparticle crystals in here of salts and minerals, where he was able to create a mirror-like patch. So when the infrared comes off, and I'll tell you one of the studies that he did, when the infrared comes off the body, it meets this disc in the center, and it's reflected back into the body at a certain frequency. So one of these patches, X39, this one stimulates, hold on 1 second, please. This one stimulates, and this is written about by this PhD. There's a peptide called GHK copper peptide. They can get this book online, GHK copper peptide. And one of these copper peptides that we can get either by injection or now make it on our own with this patch. I'll tell you how it's done in a minute. Make it on your own with this patch. Is that your body's producing and releasing infrared into the environment. This patch will reverse it back in, like shining a light in the mirror. It goes back in. So it's a mirror, if you will, that reflects that energy back in. It makes your body make this GHK copper peptide. It makes your body make this peptide without an injection. And this copper peptide does two things. One, it makes the body produce collagen, fills in wrinkles. Two, and it's good for joints and tendons and ligaments. Two, it makes your body make your own youthful stem cells. Instead of getting $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 stem cell injections, you can actually produce it on your own for pennies a day. Pennies a day. So the technology is in these different patches. One of these, I'll just show you a few. X39 makes stem cell production. X49, it's called. These are the two flagship from this company. X49 makes the body make a different. So this was called GHK copper peptide with the X39 patch. It makes the GHK copper peptide. This one makes a different copper peptide called, you don't have to remember this, but A. It's a different amino acid. We don't have to get all into peptides, but peptides are known to make things happen in the body, make more growth hormone, or protect your blood vessels, or regrow bone tissue, or make tendons heal, or make different things happen. So one of these, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this one will make your body make this other copper peptide that has been shown in laboratory work. And they have research papers. There's so many research papers on this company's website that prove it all. Studies have been done to the nth degree because they've got to stand up to prove to the FDA it's not a food or a drug, but they had to produce evidence that it's working to sell the product in the country. Not that it's treating a disease. They can't say that because alternative can't say it, but they can show that there's proof that there are case studies where people did on their own get relief from symptoms like the varicose veins you just showed. So this patch X49 reverses the oxidative stress damage that happens on blood vessels. They've seen blood vessels get healthier in bodies. They've seen even bone density osteoporosis repair with this peptide that's made by this particular patch. So when we talk about frequencies like 103.5 radio station or 102.7 or 94.9 different frequencies, this X39 patch will send out one frequency. So think of the rainbow. We have the yellow sun or orange, yellow, golden type sun. When it goes to water particles, it becomes blue and red and yellow and green and purple and all that. So he figured out how to make these organization of these nanoparticle crystals that are in salts and sugars and other minerals in here that reflect in a different frequency. So let's just say this one reflects red, infrared comes off the body. This one makes it go back as blue. Blue triggers the different peptide to make stem cells. This one goes back as a purple. Purple makes, I'm making up a color. Purple goes back, infrared comes off and it goes back as purple. It repairs your blood vessels. This one produces red, like an orangey red, from red to orange, red reflected back in. It makes the mitochondria, the energy producing factory in the cell, produce more energy. I had a tear in my shoulder, pain down my arm. I put this patch on. Within 15 minutes, all the pain in my arm and shoulder went away. And I went and bench press in the gym with a torn inside the shoulder, not my rotator cuff, but there's tissues in the tendon that were torn. This one, Silent Nights, it goes back as, let's say, a dark purple, for example, or a lavender. I'm making up colors because when that frequency goes back in, it will make the brain produce more melatonin for sleep. And there's other patches without getting into.
I have a question about the patches. Now, the difference between, say, the X39, the X49, these different patches, is it the organization of the ingredients or the composition? Is it different ingredients or it's just the organization of the same stuff?
It's a different organization. It's the same thing, but different organization.
So just same minerals is just organized in a different way to stimulate different frequencies to interact with different conditions and different things like that.
Not for different conditions, but it's to stimulate the production of a different peptide, and that peptide carries out a role in the body to make another substance to heal the body.
Exactly what I meant. There you go.
Yeah. You got it. So if you look at the pictures, you look at the varicose veins of that person.
Yeah, I want to pull that up again because these are some fascinating. So this is the varicose veins.
Yeah, look at that. No surgery. She wore this patch X39.
For how long did she have the patch? Did she have to do the patch?
She had it for 2 months, and that happened to her vein.
So what is it, like a day? You put it on every day, a new patch, or do you keep it on for?
Let me correctly state that it was June 24th to August 11th. These pictures, before and after. You see the dates are right there in the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. So you put the patch on, wear it for 12 hours.
And
then 12 hours later, you take it off, like 8 in the morning till 8 at night, take it off.
And then
you could wear another one at night, like for sleep. 8 at night till 8 in the morning, take it off, and then switch and put the other one on. And you can wear different patches at the same time.
Look at this stuff.
This
one.
first case that I saw, The person who told me about these patches for a year and a half, she was after me. Dr. Herman, I'm telling you, it's going to happen for your patients. Do this. And I said, no, but I saw this picture of her father's leg. Look at that leg on the left side of that image. That was his leg before. And he suffered with this for months, this inflammation and oozing coming out of his skin. And she put on him, the story is, she put this stem cell creation patch, X39, on him. And the next day, that was his leg, 24 hours later.
Wow.
Yeah. This person, she's wearing both the X39 and X49. You can see it says up above it. These two patches she's wearing, these two on her foot. So before and you can tell it's the same person because if you look at the big toenail, she's just got black paint on all the 4 other toes. But you look at that big toenail, how it looks like a fungal black nail. Look at the picture on the left. Smaller foot, the edema, the swelling is gone from the foot, but it's the same foot. Because if you look at her big toe, she's got the same blackened toe. You see that, the big toe?
Yeah.
So we know it's the same.
Incredible. And this is all exclusively from these patches.
From these patches and how inexpensive. So it's worth it for people. Yeah, look at this rash. This took, I think it was, what does that say? Like 30 something days that rash went away on his leg.
21 days. Wow. And look, it's just,
look at her wrinkles going away. Look at the before and after. And that was October 21 to September 22. So that's 11 months of wearing the stem cell patch. Look at this. I can't read Asian. But look at the difference in him. It's obvious. No plastic surgery.
Oh, look at that. Is that the knee?
Look at that knee. Look at that swollen knee.
Oof.
And look at it after on the bottom right picture. 30 days. 30 days.
Yeah.
Look at this varicose vein on the left and look at it on the right. And she's wearing the X39. Look at her before.
Yeah, and it's if you have any illnesses or conditions like this, it seems like there's no downside to trying this therapy. It's not. There's no foreign chemicals that are going in your body. It's literally, it seems as safe as it could be.
Bingo. You look at her. 90 days of wearing it. Look at the difference in the before and after of her face.
Wow.
No Photoshop. Look at that rash.
Sharon is one happy camper. Mm-hmm. And then what? Last one.
The dog's cataract. And there's many more pictures. Let me tell you, there's pictures and videos of people. So I give you a few to give highlights here. But look at that cataract in the dog's eye, the right eye, and look at the bottom picture, the right eye.
Yeah, wow. Incredible stuff, man. Really is.
These patches are available. Now, I've got a website, a link to the website. So the great thing about this company, number one, it's so inexpensive to get these. And I'll tell you, what happened for my mother was a real eye opener because when the numbness and the pain disappeared within 5 minutes of putting the patches on her, there's another patch called Ice Wave. I didn't show it here. Ice Wave is a pain killing patch. We put those on her feet. I didn't even understand because the person who told me about these came in, met with my mother. My patches arrived. She takes the patches, puts it on my mother's feet, and put a stem cell, the X39 patch, on the back of my mother's neck. My mother's in the waiting room. 5 minutes later, she comes back to my office room where I'm sitting in here now. She comes back here and she's crying and shaking. She can't even talk. She can't even catch her breath to talk. And I was like, what? And she grabs my hand and she pulls me and she's like, oh my God, oh, my pain is gone. I can't believe it. Is this real? Is this real? And I look over at the person who told me for a year and a half to get these patches. I look at her and she's like, I told you, Dr. Lonnie. Now you're happy. And I was like, what is going on? And my mother's walking normal, like normal speed. I was like, she went from walking slow because the feet hurt so much to walking normal. I was like, what? And then I could go on to what I've seen from these is just amazing. And so back to what you were saying earlier, is it mindset? Is it because she doubted the patches could even work, but it worked. So is it mindset? Is it energy? Is it that only my system with the water remedies? Is it the herbs? Is it the frog poison thing? It's like what works. So for less than a Starbucks coffee a day in cost, people can get patches that can literally rejuvenate their body. There's another picture I could show you. I didn't show you, but it took this man 14 months. He's got these big bags under his eyes, 14 months of just wearing this patch every single day, 14 months. His bags under his eyes disappeared. But it wasn't the first month. It wasn't the first day.
Where does one get these patches? Do they need to come see you to get them? Are they available? You just order them? How do you get them?
I've got now, you and I could, after this call, we can go on to another Zoom call and I can lead you through on the wholesale. Either you want to send your followers to my link, that's fine, or we can set you up a link. And that way you'll have a store with the company and they can order through you. And you can actually add that to your podcast if you want to. For me, I've got through LifeWave, I've got my wholesale account that I help people order through the wholesale account, and it sets them up a wholesale account. And the great thing with this company, as I said before, it's so inexpensive, and they profit share. Every order that I help somebody place through me to get wholesale prices, I get a commission back. And not only, look, let me tell you something, just helping people heal for me is what it's all about. It's not even about the profit sharing. It's just what a bonus. It's not me buying the product and storing it. They ship it to the person's home in San Diego. They're in over 100 countries. People are healing. There was a woman, I saw a video, lupus. She couldn't even walk, husband carrying around. Within a few days of wearing the stem cell patch, she's walking fine. There's video proof. And there's Facebook pages. There's a lot, but I've got a wholesale page that we can share where I can help you set up an account. You'd have to purchase patches to use for yourself or your family, give them out to people. And then you have an account and they can order, and your followers can order through you. So whichever way you'd like to do it, you let me know, but I can give you the link to mine, or if you want to set one up for you.
Yeah, you'll get me all the information, but for our listeners, how can they learn more directly, or if they want to connect with you?
Yeah. So for me, my account for LifeWave is lifewave.com/Dr. Herman /enrollment packs. Lifewave.com/Dr. Herman /enrollment packs. They could get, I'll tell you what, make it easier. They can just get to me on my email, very simple, and then I can send them any links that they want. My email is askdrherman, ASKDRHERMAN @gmail.com. askdrherman@gmail.com. ASKDRHERMAN@gmail.com. My website, I've got two websites. One website is about all the different chronic disease work that I do. It's drlonnieherman.com, DR for doctor, DRLONIEHERMAN.com. And then my other website, which brings people to a webinar about the amazing skin disease work that I do. And I've got incredible testimonials, nomorerash.com. That's nomorerash.com. I've got a bestseller that we just became an international bestseller on Amazon. It's my skin disease book. It's Healing Chronic Skin Rashes Naturally. Okay, so they can look me up, Dr. Lonnie Herman, and they'll see my book on there. And it's just very proud to just get international best-selling status on Amazon. It's great. And so they can send an email. There's another email, clinic@drlonnieherman.com, that we have for the office here. And basically, that's it. Hopefully that helps. And a phone number to the clinic, 954-370-3100.
You'll send me all of the contact information. We'll obviously drop a link in the description to everything so people can learn more and reach out. Dr. Herman, it's a pleasure having you on and learning all about what you do. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And thanks, as always, to our listeners for tuning in. And we will catch everyone next time on the next episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Everyone take care. Stay healthy out there. You only got this one life to live. Let's make the most of it. Everyone take care.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast, Cooper City. To nominate your favorite local business to be featured on the show, go to gnpcoopercity.com. That's gnpcoopercity.com, or call 954-231-3170.